You're out taking a morning stroll through your garden, enjoying the beauty of all the plants that are in bloom, and then you see it, that white powdery substance on one of your favorite plants. You begin to panic. War's about to break out to get rid of that powdery mildew. Hi, welcome to Cathy's Eclectic Garden. I'm Cathy, and I garden in Zone 5B, 6A. Stay right there, and I will show you how you can control powdery mildew. We'll be right back. What is powdery mildew? Well, powdery mildew is a general term used to describe a fungus that affects plants, or several fungi that affect plants. It's usually host specific, meaning that there are different fungi for different plants. Well, with that being said, there are some powdery mildew fungi that can host several plants. So what causes powdery mildew? Powdery mildew overwinters in leaf matter and dirt underneath your plants. That's why it comes back year after year. In the springtime, when the temperatures start getting above 60 degrees, the spores start to grow, and as the temperature warms and we start having high humidity, the powdery mildew forms. It infects the plant when the spores come in contact with a host plant, such as Monarda, and the conditions are favorable in warm weather. They don't have to have water on the leaves, which I always thought the water was what caused the powdery mildew, but it's not the water that causes it, it's the high humidity, high relative humidity. That's why it's more prevalent in the spring and the fall when we have warm days and cool nights. So what are the symptoms of powdery mildew? The most common symptom is a grayish, whitish film on the surface of the leaves. It can also be on the stems and on the flowers. And it looks like somebody dusted the plants with flour or powdered sugar or baking soda. And as the fungi grow over the surface of the plant, they extract nutrients which can cause a general decline in the health of the plant. This causes the leaves to curl sometimes, and in real severe cases they can even turn yellow or even brown. But powdery mildew doesn't usually completely destroy a plant. Now, powdery mildew is often confused with leaf mold. I've got to look at this one on my notes because I can't pronounce it. Botrytis gray mold, early blight, and downy mildew. Plants such as phlox, Monarda, and zinnias are common plants that get powdery mildew. My biggest issue in my garden is Monarda, wild bergamot. I also have spotted bee balm, and it doesn't seem to be bothered with powdery mildew as much as the wild bergamot is. So how do you control powdery mildew? Well, the best way is to make sure that your plants are healthy. Optimum plant health is the first line of defense. You also need to provide good air circulation. These plants, this one in particular, it got a little overgrown. I probably could have thinned it a little bit. It may have helped, but with wild bergamot, you're gonna get it. That's all I can say. It's very susceptible to powdery mildew. Overhead watering is a no-no. You want to water at the roots of the plant or at the base of the plant so that you don't get moisture on the leaves. The water on the leaves doesn't cause the mildew, but the overall watering of the plant foliage causes a higher relative humidity. If you notice it just on a couple of leaves early in the spring, if you pull those off and put them in the garbage, sometimes you can control it that way, especially on a plant that's not as susceptible to powdery mildew. But usually by the time I notice it, half the plant's covered in it. After you do any trimming or anything like that with any kind of garden tools on your plant that's affected by powdery mildew, you want to make sure that you clean your tool with alcohol or hand sanitizer wipes, or wash them in soapy water so that you're not transferring the mildew to other plants. How do we get rid of powdery mildew? Well, the only way that I know of to eradicate it is with a fungicidal spray. Fortunately, there are several homemade fungicidal sprays that you can make just from things that you have in your kitchen or in your other garden supplies that you can use to make fungicidal sprays. Now, the one that I prefer, and I'm going to get my notes so I can get my quantities right here, is a baking soda, vegetable oil, and dish soap. And baking soda is a classic organic fungicide. And if you take a tablespoon of baking soda, a tablespoon of vegetable oil, or you can use canola oil, corn oil, olive oil, any kind of cooking oil, and detergent, and mix that in a gallon of water, that makes a real good fungicidal spray. Now, the oil and the dish soap combined together help the solution to stick to the leaves so that they're functional. Another one is just plain old vinegar and water. You can use white vinegar or apple cider vinegar, but you want to be very careful to just use the amount that's recommended. And that recommended amount is 2 to 3 tablespoons to a gallon of water. If you use more vinegar than what the recipe calls for, you could burn your leaves on your plant or even burn the roots, and you don't want to do that. So you have to be very careful to not get too much vinegar into the solution. Another homemade fungicide that I've used is milk, believe it or not. Just any kind of milk, 1%, 2%, skim, whole milk. It has nothing to do with the fat in the milk, but the protein is the fungicide. And you mix, let's see here, 12 ounces of milk with 28 ounces of water. And then just spray that on your plants. And some people don't like to use that because they think it makes their garden smell sour, like sour milk. I've used this before and I did not notice that it did that, but if you try it and it smells, use something else. And then the last one I have here is a neem oil solution. Now, neem oil is a plant. Neem is a plant, and the oil is known for its insecticidal and fungicidal properties. And you can get neem oil at a garden center, farm store. I believe I got mine at Town and Country or Tractor Supply, I'm not sure. And you mix 1 teaspoon of neem oil and a half a teaspoon of dish soap in 1 quart of water. And there again, the soap mixed with the oil makes it stick to the plants. Now you can just mix these up. When I mix them right in my 1 gallon container, and you just pour it into a spray bottle or a pump sprayer and spray it on your plants. Now you want to make sure that you use your sprays correctly. You need to test any spray that you've not used before. You need to test it on the plant. You could use a leaf down close to the bottom that's infected and spray that and let it dry and see if it affects the leaf in any adverse way, like causing it to yellow or curl up or look like it's dying. Also, you only should spray once a week, and you should alternate sprays. If you use the baking soda spray the first week, then maybe the next week you'll want to use the milk spray. The reason for this is that funguses are stubborn, nasty little devils, and they will adapt to the fungicide that you're using, and they won't work anymore. Another thing is the baking soda is really not, the sodium in the baking soda is not good for the dirt, the soil underneath your plants, and so you don't want to use something with the baking soda in it all the time. And then you also need, if you're using this on houseplants, which you can use these on houseplants as well, you would want to wipe the leaves off to get some of the spores off the leaves so they're not coated as heavy. As you can see, this plant that I've got behind me is huge. It would take me half a day to wipe off all those leaves, so I don't normally do that. But you do need to make sure you apply ample amount of spray to each leaf so that the leaf is dripping, and then when it dries it will kill the fungi or the mildew spores. Okay, I've got my ingredients here for the baking soda oil and dish soap recipe, and I've got my 1 gallon sprayer here, and this is my 1 tablespoon of baking soda. We'll put that in, and this is my 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. Pour that in, and 1 teaspoon of dish soap, and I use Dawn dish soap. You can use any kind of dish soap, it doesn't matter. And I'll put this back in, and then you want to kind of shake that up so that it all mixes together. Okay, now, so what you have to do is, I'm not going to spray this whole plant. I intended to get out here early this morning before the bees were out, and it would have been a little easier to spray, but you want to spray very early in the morning before the bees come out, or very late in the afternoon after they've gone to bed for the night. I prefer to spray early in the morning if I can get myself out of bed that early. But you don't want to spray the blossoms necessarily, because you don't want to do anything that could harm the bees. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover the blossoms a little bit, and then you want to spray the leaves until they're good and wet. And when they've got, you can see how the water's dripping off of them. And you just want to do that until all of the leaves are thoroughly saturated. And I would go around the whole plant, pulling the flowers back so I don't get any on the flowers, and just saturate these leaves. And that's all you have to do. Just let it dry, and it should kill the powdery mildew. And you want to do this for at least a couple of weeks to make sure it doesn't come back. Now, a couple of things I wanted to mention. You can see the bees are on it right here. But this plant is right up against this mountain mint. There's no indication of powdery mildew on the mountain mint. I mean, this plant is brushing right up against it, and it's not getting any powdery mildew at all. Same way with this plant down below, this foxglove. That's not been affected. I've got Culver's root. Had to look see what it was. Culver's root here, that's not being affected. My columbine down below is not being affected. So you can see that it's pretty much host specific for this particular plant. I've got more over on the other side of the garden, and I noticed this morning that the taller plants were covered in mildew, so they'll have to be treated, but I had new plants at the bottom that had no mildew on them at all. So I want to get that one treated, and hopefully the newer plants won't get covered. Now last year, this plant was only about knee to waist high, and we got the powdery mildew on it before it flowered, so I was able, it was really easy to spray that plant and get everything covered and get that under control. Also, I often will spray the ground below the plant so that any of the spores that are in the have fallen to the ground will be killed also. Now, when the plants start looking really bad, I will go in and cut them back to the ground. And you don't want to put the foliage or the infected plants in your compost bin if you have one, because that's just going to spread it. The spores will grow in the compost, and then you'll just be putting them right back in the ground when you put the compost back on your garden. So don't put them in your compost bin. You want to put them in a garbage bag and seal them up and just throw them out with your trash. So that's how you take care of powdery mildew. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Join us again for the next one. Bye.